She is not just a coach. She is a catalyst for change, a beacon of empowerment, and a guide to the uncharted territories of the mind. Allow me to introduce you to Kenzie Grow, a passionate and transformational women's life and mindset coach who has dedicated her life to helping women break free from the shackles of limiting beliefs. Kenzie's approach is truly unique, with a blend of subconscious mind work, breathwork facilitation, and clinical hypnotherapy. She's been instrumental in guiding countless women on a powerful journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Today, we'll be delving deep into the fascinating world of overcoming fear and embracing discomfort. My hope for you today is that you will learn and be able to gather some of her insights, her experiences, and her wisdom to really help us understand how we too can unleash our inner powerhouses and create the lives that we truly desire. So sit back, relax, and prepare to be inspired as we embark on this transformative journey with Kenzie Grow. This is the Big CEO Energy, and it's time to conquer our fears and embrace the uncomfortable. You are listening to that Big CEO Energy, where we talk all things business, life, marriage, and push you to a new edge of discovering what that Big CEO Energy means for you. Listen, I understand that we have barriers that we carry from when we were once employees, and those have impacted us as we continue to build our businesses. I'm here to walk alongside you and give you encouragement through interviews with friends and other women in business who have broken down those barriers and paved their own way. Tune in with me as we uncover some of the unconscious things that we do that keep us from building that big CEO energy we've always dreamed about. Let's dive in. Kenzie, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to chat and just talk about everything it takes to be a business owner.
Absolutely. And I always ask everyone kind of, what are your top three jam topics that you talk about, right? And one of the things that was super powerful for me in those three is the idea that overcoming fear and doing things that feel uncomfortable. And so I would love for us to kind of go there today, because I think that it's super important and impactful for women to understand that there is, and I talk about this all of the time on my podcast about fear and the way that we can overcome it. And so some people do it differently, right? And other people have to show up and look fear in the face and say, I see you. Mm-hmm. I recognize you, but I'm also not going to let you make decisions for me and not let that be a catalyst on why I don't do something. So yes. I want to go there, but I kind of want to start first on how did you end up in the space of being an entrepreneur? What is your journey? What is your journey with that? And what are you doing right now?
Yes. So I will dive into my story. I always tell people, I'm going to try to shorten it, but I think it's important to see the evolution, because so often we think people have this overnight success or overnight build a business or an idea. And for me, it did take a while. So it really started, I'm born and raised in Wisconsin. Right after college, I decided to move out to California and always thought that I wanted to climb the corporate ladder. I always thought I was going to be like this CEO in a typical sense. I am now, right? But at a corporation and climb the ladder and be at the top. And that was just always what I thought I wanted to do. So I got my first corporate job and I just was really miserable. I was working a ton of hours. My husband at the time was deployed and I wasn't taking good care of myself. I wasn't setting boundaries. I really just kind of devoted my whole life to this company. And I had this moment where I was sitting in the break room and I was looking down at this really pathetic salad that I had made that I thought was healthy. And I just remember thinking, this is not what I thought, this was going to be like. This is not what I thought corporate life was going to be like. This is not as good as life can be. I know it can be bigger and better and more fun than this. And so that was kind of my light bulb moment. And from there, it started me working out, getting back, getting healthier mentally, emotionally, physically. And then from there, as I started to feel better and eat healthier, I started to look for new jobs. So I did go to another corporate job where I ended up going into management. But while I was there, I became a health coach and a personal trainer. And I really loved that. And I was doing it on the side. But as I started to train, I was training mostly women. As I trained people, I started to realize that something was missing because people weren't showing up for themselves. They weren't changing their habits. The confidence was really low. And I thought something's just missing here. And I didn't really know what, but I knew there was some kind of shift that, we're eating healthier, we're working out, but there's something missing. So fast forward a little bit, I was at this business conference and they brought in a speaker and he was talking about NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which is working with the subconscious mind. Never heard of it before, but a bunch of my friends that were there were talking about it. And I thought, this could be it. This could be the piece that my clients are missing. And so I started to get certified in neuro-linguistic programming, hypnotherapy, reiki, life coaching, and I just really fell in love with all of it, all the while still working in corporate. And I knew I wanted to go full time in my business, but I had this really cushy corporate job. I was getting a good paycheck. I liked what I was doing. I loved, my coworkers. So it was hard to leave. And finally, one day, just out of the blue, I got called into my manager and I think she was a director at the time, and I got laid off. And totally kind of rocked my world. And I always say to people, I threw a pity party for a good week. I felt sorry for myself. I was very down. What am I going to do? How am I going to, pay my bills, find a new job, all of the things. And luckily I have a really supportive husband. He told me, he's like, just do your business full time, go for it. And so ever since then, I've been doing my business full time, and it evolved a little bit over time from health coaching into life and mindset coaching. And that's really where I thrive. And I love supporting women. So that is my story of how I got to where I am today. And I've been in my business about full time, about 3.5 years now. And I can't imagine going back.
Wow. When you and your husband had the conversation of going all in your business, what types of fear came up for you in that moment?
Yeah, so many things of can I really do this? How am I going to find clients? Of course, there's the money beliefs where, you just went from collecting this consistent paycheck to now it's it's all on me. So there were so many fears, and even a big fear of really being seen. There's that fear when you first start your business of, I don't want my family, coworkers, past friends to see my Instagram. What are they going to say? What are they going to think? And then, of course, this huge identity crisis, because we so often relate our identity to our career, right? What do you do? Who are you? Oh, I work at so-and-so company and I'm a manager and I do this and I do that.
That's the first question we ask when we greet people,
right? Right.
Hey, how are you? What do you do?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's our identity. It's who we are. And so I went there, who we think we are. And so I went through this identity crisis of I'm not in corporate anymore. I don't do this. I don't do that. And having to really step into my power and say I'm a life and mindset coach. I own my own business, and learning to embrace that and not even make that my new identity, but know that it's okay to go through this transformation.
You had mentioned something about your fear around what your family would say, and if they showed up on your Instagram, and what did that turn out to be like?
Yeah.
Was that fear just irrational, or was there just some raised eyebrows of, oh, what's Kenzie doing with her life now?
I
raised my hands because there was a little bit of that. I have some family members that were like, okay, so what are you doing now? And I'm like, well, and you just kind of like play it off and you don't really mention that you have an extra Instagram, but I just kind of slid under the radar with my fear of like, oh, well, I mean, I'm doing the exact same thing I did in corporate just for myself. And to me, that made a lot more sense and a little less fearful, right? To where like my family that was a little skeptical finally got on board and they were like, oh, okay, so you basically just, all right, you're doing the same. And we just moved on, but what was that like for you?
Yeah, I would say I totally relate to what you just said, a little bit of both. And honestly, I'm glad it was a little bit of both. Looking back, obviously, when you're in the moment and people are questioning what you're doing, you're kind of like, just get on board. Like, why are you questioning me, But I do think there's a lot of valuable skills in that. But I would say I definitely had, I have parents that worked very traditional. They've been at the same company for 30, 40 years. They've always worked for someone else. So this like not really understanding what entrepreneurship is, that I'm setting my own hours, that I can travel kind of when I want to. So just not really understanding that and that lifestyle. So but I definitely had people who were like, this is really cool. Tell me about it. What are you doing? And then I did have the flip side of like people not really understanding it. And I still have that today. I still have people where I tell them what I do and they're like, what? They don't get it. And that's okay because I know what my impact is. But I definitely do relate to you in the fact of like, sometimes I'll sometimes say like, oh, I'm very similar to, a therapist, except I do this. And then they can kind of grasp like, oh, okay, I got it. And I just think when you do come from like a very traditional role, sometimes you just don't understand that world and that's okay.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about kind of your first 6 months in business. How did that go? Was it everything you expected it to be? What are some of the fears that you walked through during that time?
Yeah.
Jumping in is a little bit different because like you have the initial conversations and then I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, if this is not the case for you, I feel like once you kind of overcome that initial fear of like, oh, I don't know if I really want to like go all feet first. Once you're both feet in, you're like, oh, okay, I can do this. This is totally fine. But then you get kind of 6 months down the road, a year down the road. Where is the fear there?
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say a lot of times at the very beginning, I did just have one toe in. I was kind of scared to tell people what I was doing or really put myself out there. And when I decided to go all in, like when I decided to say, I'm a life and mindset coach, this is what I do. And I started to own it. That is when things really shifted for me because I showed up so differently. And I see that with so many other people and my clients. When you own what you're doing, that energy is just so different, the way you come across. The first 6 months, so my first 6 months of my business was actually COVID. And then we also moved. So at the time, a lot of things aligned, which is another part of my story is like, I can look back and see so many things lined up for me and that trust there, but we can come back to that. But got laid off at the exact same time. My husband's a dietitian and he had to enroll in his program and you basically have to match. And so he was about to enroll in a program in LA, but he knew he didn't want to just because of the traffic and it was going to be crazy for him. And so right as I got laid off, he was about to turn in his application. And I said, wait, is there a program in, Milwaukee, Madison, whatever? And there was. And so he ended up applying there. He matched and then we decided to move home. So it's like so many things aligned for us. So a big move, COVID, obviously running my business full time. There was a learning curve for sure of how do I structure my days? No one's around to tell me what to do. And so a lot of just figuring out structure, but then also those fears again of being seen, people questioning me. And for me, because I have the experience of being a mindset coach, it was a lot of reflection. Why is this scary for me? How can I change it? I always say to people, if you're feeling fear, you have to prove yourself wrong. So where have you proven yourself wrong before? Where have you had fear and it worked out? Where have you had fear and you showed up and it all was fine? Because our subconscious mind loves proof. And so it's finding the proof of like, yes, I can do this. I've done it before. And then I would say progressing into like today, now I look back on that fear of showing up on Instagram, people finding my account. And I think I'm like, that's so silly. Why was that so concerning to me? Why was I so concerned about people seeing my Instagram? So now over time, I can look back and on the other side of it, I'm like, those were really silly fears and beliefs of mine. But when you're in it, you're in it. But once you get to the other side, you can look back and recognize that those things were just beliefs that were holding you back.
Yeah. You had mentioned something about,
was it the trust piece?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Let's dive into that a little bit.
Yes. So a big part, and I would say just not even owning your own business, but anywhere in life, is the trust that things will work out for you. Now, I always say there's a piece there. You can't just hope something will happen and like sit back and expect it to fall into your lap, right? But taking action as well and trusting that it will come. And so usually when we're in something and it's uncomfortable and it's new, we are kind of gripping and trying to control the situation. But I'm a really firm believer in that everything happens the way it's meant to or supposed to. So if you don't get the job, it's for a reason. If the client doesn't sign up with you, maybe it wasn't a good fit. Everything happens the way it's supposed to. And on my journey, I could see that because I went to that conference and somebody started talking about NLP. Never heard of it, but it's exactly what I needed. I got laid off and then we moved and, I can see now looking back that everything lined up the exact way it was supposed to. And of course, when you're in it, it feels terrifying, right? And you want to control the situations, but sometimes we just have to accept that that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And I think when we put ourselves in the middle and really work hard at trying to minimize certain aspects or trying to control certain things, we miss out on a huge piece of the journey, which is the trusting and believing and knowing that no matter what, if this is meant for you, it's going to happen. If it's not, something else is around the corner, and I think back to when I was in corporate and they shut down the branch that I had become manager of. Mm-hmm. And at that moment, I was like devastated. And I thought, I have to go get another job and I have to do all the stuff and things. And I have to, without really realizing that this little piece of me that really wanted to start my business, and I was just kind of like side hustling it, not really sort of paying attention. It was like screaming my name, but I was so focused on working this other deal, right? Getting myself out into the world that it's like, I could have started my business so much sooner.
Yeah.
If I just would have leaned in, right? Mm-hmm. If I just would have been okay with being a little bit uncomfortable on the unknown, right? Yeah. Because I think that's a really scary thing, is like being uncomfortable is this sort of physical thing that we don't really necessarily want to sit in.
Yeah. We like to be comfortable.
So. Yeah. I mean, we all do.
Yeah.
And so when you are moving across the country and you are just like, you're gotten laid off and now you've got to figure out your day. When you're really feeling uncomfortable, what are some of like the physical sort of things that you went through? I know, right? We just talked about you being in corporate and like that was a whole mess of being uncomfortable too, because you're physically ill, you're not really taking care of yourself. And then you actively decide like, okay, full stop. I have got to make a change. Did any of that kind of come back to fruition when you were in your business and moving and that whole transition? Or was that looking a little bit different?
Like the fear of it and everything?
Yeah, like being uncomfortable, anything physical change about yourself?
Yeah. I want to touch on the like uncomfortable and fear part, if that's okay with you first, because I think that's something that definitely entrepreneurs struggle with is feeling uncomfortable or feeling fear. And I, of course, had to learn this. This wasn't, from day one. I didn't know this, but when you're uncomfortable or when you feel fear, our body is trying to keep us safe because that's your body's job to keep you safe. And our body does not like the unknown. So if you are an entrepreneur, really anything, but an entrepreneur, and you're deciding, I want to get up on a stage and speak in front of 200 people for the first time, even though that seems amazing and the next best step for your business, your body is saying, ooh, wait, I've never done this before. We have no experience with this. This is not safe. Yeah. And so recognizing the difference here is saying, am I physically safe? Am I going to get hurt? Is harm going to come to me? Probably not. But is my body trying to keep me safe because we don't want to be uncomfortable? And when you can recognize the difference and say, okay, it's going to be uncomfortable. We're a little scared, but we're going to step into it anyways. And the more you do that and the more you challenge it, the body starts to say, okay, we've done this before. This feels safe. We've done it before. And so I always say to people, like, you have to differentiate between the two because they feel the same, right? You feel scared, you feel uncomfortable, but you have to recognize which is which. Mm-hmm. So that's just my little speech on fear because that's so important to know that you are going to feel uncomfortable. There's probably very rarely do people not feel uncomfortable no matter what level they're at. You could have been in your business for 20 years, make millions of dollars, get up on stage every day, and you're still going to feel uncomfortable and fear in certain situations. That's just how our bodies are made.
Yeah.
So as far as like my physical body being in my own business, I would just say my journey taught me that I wasn't taking good care of myself. And so now I know what makes me feel really good. I know in the morning I need to wake up and I need to have 30 minutes, an hour to myself where I sip my coffee, make breakfast, meditate, whatever it is before I dive into the day. I know I need to move my body to feel my best. So even with my whole mindset journey, my health has played a huge role in that too.
Yeah, I definitely think that once you understand that your mental health and your physical health are very closely related.
Yes.
And one honestly cannot function without the other.
Yep, 100%.
And I truly think that we lose sight of that sometimes when we are in the grind mode, because I think there's out in society, there are tons of things of just hustle. I mean, once you start your business and you go all in and you decide to do the thing, you have got to hustle to make it. Mm-hmm. And I challenge people by saying, if that's your definition of success, then that's great. That is on you. The onus is on you. Mm-hmm. But I would also be cautious that when the hustling stops, what has your body and your mind actually gone through? Is it a physical transformation that you are unrecognizable? Because if that's the case, then was that worth it? I almost think about, we're building these businesses, whatever that is, you can apply it to any business. We're building these businesses to be sustainable. So shouldn't we be sustainable also?
Yes. Practice what you preach, right? Like,
and it's so easy, right? To get caught up in these societal, like the hustle culture, and you gotta, when you're an entrepreneur, you get to work 24/7 and, you see all the memes about it. Mm-hmm. What boundaries have you put on your business and yourself that have made it feel really, really good about where you are in your business? Can you give us
I
any
love
of
talking
those?
about boundaries.
Yes.
It's like one of my top things I talk about with my clients because, you know, a lot of times as kids, we're not really taught that we get to have boundaries. We're taught in society that you don't get to say no, that you don't get to be selfish. And I always tell my clients, I'm like, I want you to be selfish. I want you to say no to things. I want you to put yourself first. Like, it is not a negative thing to be selfish, right? Like to a certain extent, of course, but I want you to put yourself first. So I will say too, like, obviously there's ebbs and flows. There's times in my business where I do kind of have to grind and get stuff done, but I notice a huge difference how people respond to me, how I'm signing clients, just how I show up in my business when I am a little more relaxed, when I'm just kind of letting my business flow. I notice more come through. When I go on vacation, I have clients sign up. Like, I've just noticed for me that the hustle and the grinding makes things worse for me because I'm not showing up as my best self. So again, like you said, if that works for you and that's great and you're grinding 24/7, awesome. But I don't want people to feel like that's what they have to do to run a business, because that flow and that, I've mentioned a couple of times, but that good energy, people pick up on your energy. If you're desperate for sales and desperate for people to sign up, people can pick up on that. If you're like, yeah, my business feels good, I got this, I'm not desperate for the sign up, I'm speaking from my heart, I know what I'm good at, then those people will be attracted to you. Boundaries that I've set up. So for me, kind of what I mentioned before, I have what I call my non-negotiables. So I have a list of things where, like, these are the things that I know make me feel my best. I feel my best when I have a morning routine, when I move my body, when I have a clean car, clean bedroom, clean office. For some people, it could be, I feel my best when I have my hair done, my nails done, whatever it is. It can be anything, but I make a list and I have the things that I do every day. Then there's things that, you do every couple months. But when I feel like my life is falling apart, when I feel like things are chaotic and the wheels are falling off, I go back to that list and I'm like, oh, my car's dirty. My car's really cluttered. My mind feels cluttered. Mm-hmm. And so I can go back to that list and really see where I'm not taking care of myself. So a boundary for me is putting myself first so that I can show up the way I want to. Other boundaries would be things like, I don't respond to clients on weekends. Monday through Friday, they have access to me. They can Voxer me, email me. But on the weekends, I'm with my family. Other boundary is just as simple as, say, even a boundary is like signing clients that feel good to you. Of course, we all want to make sales, but there's been clients where we're just not a good fit and they're ready to sign up, but it's not going to be a good fit. And that's okay, right? We need to know what feels good to us and what doesn't. So I would say those are my biggest boundaries when it comes to my business. And I'm also really good about like putting my phone away at night, 8:00-ish rolls around, phone goes in the bedroom. Depends on my day, but I'm really good about, 4:00, 5:00, laptop closes. I grab a book, I go outside. I love to be outside. So that's like a non-negotiable for me. Get outside, put my feet in the grass, things like that make me feel really good. And then something I've learned more recently is saying no more. I am pretty good about saying no, but I had a lot of people asking me for help. Hey, can we have a meeting? Hey, can we grab coffee and chat about this? And I love that. I love helping other people with their businesses. I love just catching up. But I was doing too much of it and it was really taking me away from my own goals and what I needed to accomplish. So setting boundaries and being okay with saying no to people.
Yeah, I hear that on a molecular level of saying no. And it is very easy when you become an entrepreneur that you have all the free time in the world, right? So if your girlfriend or whatever also has a business that she's an entrepreneur, or maybe she's a stay-at-home mom and, the kids go to school, it's very easy to say, oh yeah, let's go and meet up midday and have a 2-hour coffee session. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that those can't be productive and, it's really great sometimes to like go and co-work with someone. I find so much value in that with some of my entrepreneur friends around town. But at some point, you have to be like, is this matching what I need throughout my day? Because if it's draining you, then saying yes is not the right opportunity right now.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're in a period of growth. I think that can really, again, coming back to, we want to be comfortable, right? So if we're in a period of growth and things start to get a little uncomfortable and maybe, we're required to show up a little bit more or a little more expansion is being, asked of us, it's very easy for us to say, I'm going to go to the coffee shop and chat with Susie for the next 2 hours because I don't have to be at home doing the thing. Yeah. So being mindful, I think of who we are. And it's almost like, I tell people that it's almost like we have to be the parent of ourselves because there's not an employer showing up in your cubicle, making sure that your report is going to be done by 5 p.m.
Right. It's
Nobody's
just you
doing that for you, right? It becomes like this foreign land of how do I manage my time and how do I manage my day? And that in and of itself is a chore and is really uncomfortable sometimes. Mm-hmm. But I love your idea of making a list. And when you start to feel uncomfortable, when you start to feel sort of out of sorts and out of control, it may seem pretty juvenile, right? To write the things down. Mm-hmm. People on my channel have no lapse of hearing me say journal. Every episode they hear it because it's so powerful.
It is.
But it's like if you're in tune with yourself, right? And you start hearing yourself or see yourself writing all the time, I feel disconnected. I feel out of sorts. I love this idea that you have written, or maybe it's stored up in your mind too, of this list that you just kind of mentally tick through and say, my father's a literal mess.
Yeah.
That is why I'm out of balance, because it makes sense. It makes total sense. What are some of the things that you have noticed in yourself as you have watched yourself grow in your business now? Where have you grown internally the most, you would say?
Yeah. I would say I'm so unbothered by things. Like, yeah,
I love it.
I am just, something happens. Obviously, big things in life happen, but like there's different reactions. But like something happens, it is what it is. How are we going to move forward? How are we going to problem solve? Somebody doesn't like what I'm doing. Okay, sounds good. Like I'm just so unbothered. And a lot of that comes from the mindset work that I've done, what beliefs were holding me back, but also body work, emotions. Some of us, and I was like this, where we're just like so quick to, oh my gosh, they don't like me. Oh my gosh, this or that, or kind of freak out. And when we can regulate our nervous system, when we do breath work, we meditate, we're taking care of ourselves, we're doing those non-negotiables, your nervous system just calms down so much. And so for me, like, it takes a lot to get me riled up. My husband has never heard me yell. He'll admit that. Like, I'm just so unbothered by things. And we just figure it out and we move on. And so for me, that feels so good, but it also serves me so well as an entrepreneur.
I love that. What would you say to someone that they are kind of stuck with this fear mentality and have maybe even a little bit of a scarcity mindset? In the work that you do, I can only assume that you get women that show up at, I call it, your front door like this. Mm-hmm. How do you kind of work with them and process with them and give them opportunities that they can help themselves kind of get through this this fear that always seems to show up anytime they want to do something different?
Yeah. So I'm going to go a couple different ways with that. But the first thing I would say is I always really like people to get clear on like who they want to be and how they want to show up in the world. And I call it your highest self. Who is your highest self? And if she was doing all the things that you wanted to be doing, how would she show up in the world? Who would she be? What would she be doing? What would she have? And I like them to write that down. And typically I'll create like a hypnosis for them. But even if you have that vision and you lay down at night and every night before you go to bed, you visualize her, how she shows up, what is she doing, how is she acting? The subconscious loves all of those details. And the more you can focus on who you're becoming, the more your subconscious will start to say, yeah, that's who I am. I am the confident woman who shows up. I am the woman who steps into a room and everyone gravitates to her, whatever it is that you want to be. But get that vision really clear and start visualizing it every single day. Now, when it comes to those limiting beliefs, I love to do like NLP work with people. But if you're starting to work on it on your own, get clear about what the fear is. You know, I'm scared of being seen. Okay, well, why are you scared of being seen? Is it fear of judgment? Is it that you're judging yourself? And then again, finding that proof where you've proven yourself wrong before. Where have you shown up before and you were seen and everything was fine? Finding that evidence to start to work through that. And then I always say just a simple first step is an affirmation. So if it's, I can't own my own business, the affirmation becomes, I'm capable of owning a successful business. The more your brain hears that, the more it says, yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. It loves that repetition and it will help you to build those new neural pathways as well.
I love that. Kenzie, where can people find you?
Yes. So they can find me on my website, kenzgrowcoaching.com. And then also Instagram, it's just Kenzie Grow, KENZGROH.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your heart with us today. I have so much admiration for the work that you do and stepping into the space of really loving on women and helping women believe that they can and put the action steps behind what they want. Mm-hmm. And so thank you for your work out in the world and teaching us how we can overcome fear and be comfortable with being in the uncomfortable.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning into the show today. If you heard something that helped you, I would love it if you would leave a review and share it with your friends. This helps more people just like you become inspired to move the needle of their big CEO energy into a positive direction. If you would like to learn more about how I can help you streamline and position your business for growth or lead your business as a CEO, feel free to jump into the show notes with all of the links to find me. And don't forget to head over to Instagram so we can be pals.